Something shifted on March 9th, and most people missed it. James Cameron showed up at the Saturn Awards and said something that changed the entire conversation around Avatar 4. Very likely, but not 100%. Not confirmed. Not greenlit. But very likely, which is a completely different thing from what he was saying even a few months ago. For a franchise that has been operating under genuine uncertainty since Fire and Ash finished its theatrical run, that's the most meaningful public signal Cameron has sent about the future of this saga in over a year. And the way he said it, connecting the fourth film directly to box office trajectory, framing current performance as the lever that gets productions like this moving, tells you exactly where Avatar 4 actually stands right now. To understand why that matters, you need the financial picture first. Fire and Ash crossed $1.45 billion globally. That number sounds enormous, and by any normal standard, it is. But according to Variety, the film actually did not turn a profit. The production budget alone was around $400 million before marketing. And at those numbers, the math doesn't work the way it needs to for a franchise operating at this scale. Disney has not formally approved Avatar 4, even with December 2029 on the release calendar. What Cameron said on March 9th signals that the situation is improving, that the gap between where Fire and Ash landed and where it needed to land is smaller than it looked. And for a saga this ambitious, that shift matters. But the more interesting thing Cameron said at the Saturn Awards was the part that got almost no coverage. He said the team will incorporate audience feedback from Fire and Ash into the next sequel. And then he got specific. The main criticism Fire and Ash received was that it felt too similar to Way of Water, with familiar story beats and a climax that audiences felt they had already seen. Cameron heard that, and his concrete response was to name the character he plans to write up significantly for the fourth film, Varang. Cameron said directly that Varang may need to be written up moving forward, that she got lost among a large ensemble in Fire and Ash, and that the audience response to her is exactly the kind of problem he wants to have. He then compared her situation to Pyakun, the Tulkun who became the highest-rated character in Way of Water entirely because of audience response, which is why Cameron brought him back for a major role in Fire and Ash. The same logic now applies to Varang. For a director who has always operated on pure personal instinct, openly saying he's responding to audience feedback is a real and noticeable shift. Una Chaplin herself has confirmed she's excited to keep exploring Varang, saying there are so many cool possibilities moving forward. And the character has earned it. Varang is something this franchise has never really had before. A Na'vi who has completely lost her faith in Eywa, not through intellectual doubt, but through collective trauma so severe it pushed her entire clan outside the spiritual framework that holds Na'vi society together. Chaplin described Varang's worldview as turning a life force into a power game, which makes her a fundamentally different kind of Na'vi than anything audiences have seen before. Her survival at the end of Fire and Ash, combined with Quaritch's ambiguous fate, sets up the most ideologically interesting axis this saga has built. Two characters defined entirely by survival and betrayal finding common cause. That's dramatically richer territory than any purely military confrontation. My theory on what Avatar 4 needs to do differently connects to everything Cameron said that night. The correction isn't just about Varang, it's structural. For the first time in this franchise, the story leaves Pandora entirely and takes the action to Earth. The criticism that Fire and Ash felt too familiar gets addressed by the most disruptive move Cameron could make. You cannot call Avatar 4 more of the same if it's set on a completely different planet. Earth in this universe isn't a place of wonder. It's a dying world that sent people across the stars because it had already consumed itself. Arriving there as Na'vi wouldn't feel like discovery. It would feel like confronting the origin point of everything Pandora has been fighting against. That's a darker premise than anything this franchise has attempted. And frankly, it's the creative risk I've been waiting for Cameron to take. The tonal direction he's committed to for the fourth installment finally feels like it's going somewhere genuinely new rather than just bigger, which brings us to the title. And the silence around it is the most deliberate thing happening in this franchise right now. Every Avatar film has announced its name well before cameras rolled. Way of Water, Fire, and Ash. Both titles signaled tone and direction without giving away the story. Avatar 4 has a confirmed release date, a scheduled production start in 2026, a finished screenplay, And no title anywhere. There was a BBC leak back in 2018 that listed Avatar 4 as the Tulkun writer, and that same leak correctly predicted details about the second and third films, which gives it real credibility, but Cameron has never confirmed it. And given that the story is now heading to Earth, a title referencing Pandora's creatures might not reflect where the fourth film actually goes. Cameron is protecting this information deliberately. Any title accurate to a story taking Na'vi to Earth is going to reveal more than he wants audiences to know right now. When that name finally drops, it will tell you more about Avatar 4 than anything he has said in any interview. What the Saturn Awards also revealed is that Cameron is now listening to audiences in a way he never has before. And that connects directly to Kiri. Jake Sully will not be narrating Avatar 4. His voice has anchored this universe since 2009. And that role transfers to Kiri, played by Sigourney Weaver through performance capture. Cameron told Weaver this over a decade ago, which is the kind of long-game planning that has no real equivalent in mainstream blockbuster filmmaking. Kiri narrating a story set on Earth is a fundamentally different kind of Avatar film than anything that came before. A character raised inside Pandora's spiritual ecosystem, describing a dying human world through Na'vi eyes. That's not just a narrator change. That reorients the entire emotional experience of watching these films. Less war movie, more perspective shift. Less spectacle as the endpoint, more spectacle in service of something genuinely disorienting. The first three films asked audiences to see Pandora through human eyes. Avatar 4 flips that completely. Spider becomes central to that story in ways the previous films were quietly setting up, and honestly, I'm surprised more people aren't talking about this. He's the only person in this saga who exists completely in both worlds. Biologically human, culturally Na'vi, belonging fully to neither. For a story on Earth exploring what genuine alliance between humans and Na'vi would actually require, Spider is the only character who represents that possibility in his own body. Not as a symbol, as a living proof of concept with all the complications that implies. If the fourth film moves into scientific research around adapting humans to Pandora's environment, and the Earth setting strongly implies it will, Spider becomes the most important person in every conversation about what real integration looks like. That's not a supporting role. That's the whole movie. On the production side, the groundwork was laid between 2017 and 2020 when Cameron ran performance capture across 3 films simultaneously, capturing Avatar 4 sequences before the younger cast aged out. The time jump between Fire and Ash and the fourth film is approximately 8 years, large enough that Cameron needed that early footage to make it work visually. Michelle Yeoh joins as Paktuelat across films 4 and 5. Performance capture already completed. What's interesting is that Cameron originally wrote her role as a human scientist named Dr. Karina Moog. He later rewrote it entirely as a Na'vi character, which tells you how significantly the ideological landscape of the fourth film shifted during development. Cameron also joined Stability AI to cut VFX costs in half without reducing the workforce. Same people, twice the speed. Generative AI banned from anything touching actual performance or creative design. The broader structure closes with Avatar 5 in December 2031. 2 paired stories ending with Earth seen through Na'vi eyes and completing everything Cameron started in 2009. But right now, none of that matters as much as what happened on March 9th. Cameron said very likely. He named Varong as the character Avatar 4 is building around. He said audience feedback will shape what comes next. He said the box office math is moving in the right direction. Everything that needed to shift shifted in one night. And for the first time in a while, I actually believe this franchise knows where it's going. The title he still hasn't announced is the last piece of the puzzle. When it drops, and based on everything Cameron said at the Saturn Awards, it will, pay attention to every single word of it.